Previously, on our overland trip to Georgia, we traveled deep into the heart of the Caucasus. We visited high mountain villages, met the friendly locals, faced the wild beauty and challenges of Georgia's highlands. And just as we started to feel truly remote and stopped to explore an abandoned site, we realized we might have stepped a bit too far as we were suddenly approached by armed men. Me and Freya just came back from exploring the buildings and were greeted by machine guns. At first, we had no idea who this uniformed man was and what he wanted. Right after him, a second one arrives, and it turns out they're the Georgian military, and we're in some sort of violation. So they start taking photos of our vehicles and also of our documents. So it turned out that the buildings are not in use, but this border zone, it's pretty much still functional. We just got fined by the border police, and this is the fine ticket of 20 lari that we have to pay at the bank per person. A second violation would be 200 lari, so much more. What you need to do if you want to go through these certain border zones is to get permission from the border police in advance. After a while, we got that all sorted, and with the fine tickets in our pockets, we are on our way to find that perfect campsite that I have planned, and I'm sure everyone will love it. And there it is, even better than I expected. Nothing better after the hot day than to get to camp early at the front of a high mountain lake with frozen water and, of course, immediately plunge into it. I don't know exactly how cold it is. Sure, the water is cold, but would you miss the opportunity being in a spot like this? Of course not.
There were a few people when we arrived, really friendly locals by the way, so we had a nice chat with them, but as soon as the sun started going down, we got the whole spot for ourselves. The next morning, we were on our way to the next village, and the day started okay. Until it didn't.
Now folks, if you see your track is going through tall grass, don't just count on it, walk it. Because in my case, I thought the ground would be firm, and here is the result. The Hilux is stuck, so I'm going to guide the patrol through here. We have already walked this path and we know where the tires need to be. So he will come up front and can give me a winch.
I don't love patrols, but at least they serve as a good anchor point for self-recoveries. If I was alone here, I would have grabbed the shovel to make way for the max tracks. So there is always a way out. But, of course, the winch is simply quicker and cleaner. Things quickly escalated further when we entered the nearby forest, so I'm letting the patrol in front.
This one is a very sticky mud, so that is the only option.
To be honest, this is the toughest section of the trip so far. Mostly because it hasn't been driven much. There surely must be a better way that leads from yesterday's lake to the next village, but it's not on the map, and I simply don't know where it is. So we push forth.
Now, if you ask me in theory what my attitude is, I would say I would never go to such extreme off-road when I'm overlanding internationally. I'm here to taste the local cuisine, to meet the people, to see something new, and off-roading I can do right there in Varna. But what do you know? One more turn, right here, it's probably gonna get better. Here is the village, and before you know it, we are deep in the woods, deep in the mud, and risking damage to the vehicles. But I guess that's just how it is. Anyway, we have reached the village that I wanted to reach, and from here it should be more or less main road like this one.
Continuing on the main-ish gravel road, we are finally able to pick up some speed, while also enjoy the mountain views on the side of the road. However, it seems I might have been going a little too fast, considering the conditions of this particular road.
Now that is definitely not good. We'll have to make a change of plans and go to the nearest repair shop, because I think that is differential oil that is going into the wheel rim at high speeds. Probably it's the bearing or the seal for the bearing. I guess we'll find out soon enough. We only managed to drive just a couple of more kilometers to the village, but we have 30 more kilometers, and I just stopped and I saw the oil is leaking very fast, and it's starting to smell really bad, which means that the remaining oil in the differential is very little and it's starting to heat up. So if I continue driving in this situation, I am going to risk a broken diff, a broken air locker, and so on and so on. So the most sensible thing to do now is to call the towing service and call it a day.
At least we enjoy a nice view while we wait. It took about 2 hours to find a flatbed, explain what we need and where we are, and wait for them to get here. Considering the size and weight of the Hilux, you can imagine not everyone wanted to take the job and come all the way here on this road. Of course, you can find the beautiful side in every situation. We found an auto repair shop in the nearest city, and it turns out the bearing was destroyed. 2 days later, we are back on the road. It took some time to get my hands on the necessary parts, but I'm happy to be moving under my own steam again. Now, hidden along the left bank of the Kura River lies Vardzia, a breathtaking cave city carved into the slopes of Mount Erusheti. The city was built in the 12th century during the reign of Queen Tamar.
When you see all these rooms, it is tempting to check all of them and see what secrets they're hiding, but they are in total 641, so it will take us approximately 2 days. So let's just check the main ones and be on our way.
Vardzia was both a fortress and a spiritual center. Its hidden chambers and labyrinth of tunnels once sheltered thousands of people, protecting them from invaders. At the heart of the complex is the Church of the Dormition, adorned with vibrant frescoes that still echo the centuries past.
I have been to cave monasteries and cities before, but first off, the sheer size. This place is huge with 600 rooms. And secondly, just look at the view that is accompanying us right outside these rocks.
It was nice to step into history and explore a world carved in stone. Time to continue our journey into the remote parts of Georgia. A short section of paved road is leading us toward a high mountain lake where we are hoping to find a nice spot to set up camp. It might not seem like it, but the altitude here is already above 2,000 meters. No doubt the region is picturesque, but usually the wind picks up right after sunset. So we're scouting the banks of the lake to find a place that is at least somewhat protected. And I think I saw just the one.
This entire lake is very open, so it is extremely windy. It is 2100 meters, so it is extremely cold, and the only place that is somewhat suitable for camping is right next to these trees that are going to stop some of the wind. Not to mention that these are the only trees inside.
After a peaceful but very cold night by the lake, we are ready to hit the track. Our next destination is the cave monasteries in eastern Georgia. This hill climb appears to be a bit steep and technical. Careful tire placement and low-range gears are all you need here. From this point forward, the terrain becomes pretty flat and easy going all the way to the monastery. And there it is, frozen in time. It seems there is a good dog in the monastery, but Mira is not taking any chances. To be honest, I also wasn't expecting two big canic horses. Anyway, St. George Monastery, I'm not going to try to pronounce the Georgian version of it, consists of numerous cave temples and a central church. Of course, you're required to cover yourself to enter, and we respect the local customs. The church is carved into the rock and stands out for its extraordinary height. The fragmented decorations that can be seen date back to the first half of the 12th century. I think this is the perfect spot for a monastery. It is quiet, peaceful, and absolutely remote. I don't know if it's so much the monastery or the vastness around it, but it feels like we're on another planet. The landscape in southeastern Georgia has completely changed from the mountains where we started the journey. It's a sea of steppe, quiet and endless. We found a place to pitch our camp and let the stillness seep in.